One thing that we get asked about every year is if farmers are changing up maybe some of the strategies that they're using and they're wondering if it's working or not. Sort of a way to do that earlier in the season instead of waiting until you see yield at the end of the year is to do something called the float test. You're digging up a corn plant and you're washing the soil away from the roots. And larvae and even pupae that are in the soil around the roots will float to the top. And there's a couple of things that we can take away from the float test. There's some things that we can't do, but we'll go inside the field here and take a look and show you how to dig up the plant and then how to do the float test. Let's go. So depending on the genetics and the growth stage of the corn, there might be a variable root system. Some tend to grow more out, some tend to put on a lot of root mass and penetrate deep into the soil. So it's important to understand that we don't want to shear off any of the roots when we're digging up the corn plant.
We stepped into the cornfield because ideally you would, if you were doing this in a large field, you would be going a ways into the field to sample corn roots because there just tends to be a lot of insect activity at the field edge, so we want a good representative sample when we're doing the float test and anything else that we're doing for corn rootworm. I've identified a plant here that I'm gonna attempt to dig up. We want to try to dig quite a ways around that root system so that we don't lop off any of the roots. We also want to do this just because the larvae are in the soil and sometimes in the roots, but a lot of times they are just in the soil surrounding the plant. So if we're doing the float test, we would like to have a lot of the surrounding soil so that we can see what kind of larval activity is going on. So I tend to use a spade and dig a circle going all the way around the plant. We try to go straight into the ground so that we're not lopping off any of those roots. And I tend to try to picture like a, I don't know, a basketball size, volleyball size, and dig, I don't know, maybe 6 inches away from the stalk. And that allows us to try to get as much of that root system as possible. Inevitably, you'll probably lop off some roots, but if we dig a pretty wide circle, we can get as many as possible. Sometimes it's a bit challenging to get the roots out of the ground, especially when it's pretty dry like it's been here in 2023. So once I have a nice circle, then I try to go down again and then kind of lift it out of the ground.
Try to get underneath the root system, right? Yeah.
Yes.
Yep.
So maybe 6 inches deep if possible, maybe a little more. And then it should just come straight out of the ground. And then once it's dug up, we can take it out of the field and put it in some water and look for larvae.
That's a good one, Ashley.
Thanks.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're not interested in taking the entire plant, sometimes I like to just chop it off and leave a little handle.
Yes. Yes.
The corn plants can be very tall and heavy, so you can just kind of get a handle and then take it over to wherever you're washing them.
Yeah, especially if you're pulling out multiple plants, which I encourage, is to spot check plants around a field. Making these little handles sure does make it easy to get the plants out of the field versus pulling the whole plant out. There's no need for that.